What's going on, y'all? Really quick before we get into everything, head on over to Thrill of Possibility over on Etsy to pick up a 3D printed deck box or files for your 3D printer for a deck box or any other accessory. Head on over to Arcane Collective to pick up your cards. They're just two guys that are they're not sponsors, they're just two guys that are in my real life pod that I want to support and throw some business their way. However, if you are in the market for a playmat, head on over to jankmats.com, use code NERDSNACHOS for 10% off at checkout. If you want an energy blend, a hydration blend, a relaxation blend, head on over to w.gg and use code NACHOS at checkout for 10% off. Or if you want your caffeine the old fashioned way from your coffee, head on over to fixcoffeebrand.com and use code NERDS and NACHOS for 15% off. All right, let's get into it. What is going on, y'all? Welcome back to Nerds and Nachos. How's your week's been? Mine has been weird and kind of a challenge. It was my first like full week being unemployed, and I kind of forgot one just how like bone crushingly and soul crushingly fucking boring it is just to sit around and you can only work on your passionate creative projects so much before there is just time left in the day and you don't really have anything else to do with it and you're just sat there staring at your computer screen hoping that something fills the dopamine void, but nothing really does. And I never thought I would say that about work. I enjoy working on creative projects like Nerds and Nachos, and hey, we're developing a new show. Crazy and scary. I am telling you about it here first. It's going to be a much more, just a much larger endeavor and require a lot of work. I'm not ready to fully announce it yet, but we are going to be pushing a new show here in the near future. But outside of that, just living with the dopamine void of not having a job. I never thought I would say that about work, but not having, you know, this pay the bills yet, and it being just the crushing weight and anxiety of what are we going to do, what am I going to do, how are we going to afford food to keep the lights on, to keep the roof over our head, and all of that stuff starts to just the overwhelming dread is what I've had to explain it as. And it's not fun to deal with, and I'm not going to keep talking about it after this. Outside of that, I did build in my multitude of free time. I built Doran Besieged by Time. I built it as a bracket too. I didn't go after any of my tutors or because I have a lot of printed demonic tutors. I knew I was gonna like that card a bunch, and so I printed a ton of them when I first got into Magic and started proxying, or first got back into Magic and started proxying. So I have them somewhere. That and Urza's Saga. I got a bunch of those too because it was really good. I pulled like one of them, and I didn't want to have to just keep moving it in between decks. So we built that. I think spiritually it is a 3. While on paper it's a 2, it has no game changers. It puts a lot of pressure down the field very quick, a lot of pressure and a lot of damage down range very quickly because Doran he's a 1 and an Abzan for a 0/5. He makes all of your big booty boys cost 1 less, and whenever they swing they get plus X, where X is a difference between their power and their toughness. So it really wants you to play really high toughness low power creatures, and it's something about Tree of Perdition being as 1326 when it blocks is so funny to me. I can't really explain to you why, but I hope you see that just having it become a 1326 is so funny. And so that's in there. I used a lot of the pieces from the Jund precon because there are a lot of like higher toughness boys in there, and I've got it sitting right here. I think you can kind of see it right here in the corner. I really, really like it. It's been something that I've been looking for a new style of deck because I am in a more creature focused meta. I like to play a lot of like low creature count combo decks, and that doesn't tend to work when you have a lot of creature decks and creature combo decks, and also paying a lot of life. I've talked about Alayla a lot on Instagram and TikTok and just in my YouTube shorts. Like a lot of my short form content, I talk about Alayla, the fairy control deck that I'm building and have built. I'm just trying to get it to work. It is closer to working. Now, I know probably you're saying, like, if it's Alayla and it's fairy control, what's stopping it from working? It's because I added white and I'm playing original Alayla that you're supposed to play as kind of an Esper artifact, Esper enchantress deck where you get fairies as a bonus. But instead, I saw this is a 2/3 with Flying, Death Touch, and Lifelink. It gives all my other creatures with Flying +1/+0. Why would I not want this creature to helm my deck full of fairies? She doesn't particularly care about fairies, but fairies do have flying. And there was also, I think, Twinning Twins. It's a 4/4 for 4 with, I think, either flying Ward 2 and Vigilance, or just flying in Ward 2. But it's also a 1 and a white blink spell on the adventure side of it. So I really wanted that, and I wanted to play a couple white cards for removal and board wipes. So we ran Esper, and what really stops it is the amount of life that it uses so quickly, and why I kind of have gravitated towards Doran, because Doran has 49 creatures in the deck, and it's a ton of fun. Both of them are a lot of fun. Alayla's a lot closer to working. I threw in Soul Conduit because it uses Bitter Bloom, Bearer, Bitter Blossom, and Necropotence as a way to generate creatures and card draw. But what that does is it lowers my life total really, really quickly. In very, very short spans of the game, I can go from 40 to 12 very quickly. So what we've done is add in Soul Conduit so that it's a 6 mana artifact from New Phyrexia that says pay 6 and tap it and switch to target player's life totals. So essentially what I'm wanting to do is pay a lot of my life and hold that up with 6 mana at instant speed to tell people, if you come at me, your life total becomes mine and I get yours. So I'm enjoying it. She's better. We're testing her again. We're also still testing Morcant this week. Why are we still testing Morcant? Because it's Elf Ball. It's Elf Ball, but also removal, and people don't like it. And so I don't tend to end up with my combo piece, which is Flourishing Defenses. I worry about like something else in my hand at all times, and that's not the way that we need to play the game. We just need to look for a way to get to Flourishing Defenses. We need mana elves, and a way to get to Flourishing Defenses, or Flourishing Defenses in our hand. But that's all we're doing this week. What am I talking about? It's been about 7 minutes. What am I talking about this week? Well, this week, I'm talking about taxes, baby. That's right. Rhystic Study wasn't banned. Rhystic Study, there's been a lot of discourse about Rhystic, why it wasn't banned. I tend to think, and I skew towards, I just don't think Rhystic's that bad. I definitely have seen games where the person who's played the Rhystic Study has won, but I've also been the person who's played the Rhystic Study and lost. If the Rhystic Study is dealt with quickly or constantly paid for, it's not quite the issue that it's chalked up to be. But if it's not paid for and it's not dealt with, it does become a problem. It's all kind of down to what your pod does. Or does the person who doesn't have Rhystic Study think they can turbo out faster than the person who has Rhystic? And these are all very normal and likely things, right? You can turbo out faster than the person who has Rhystic. You can control the person who has Rhystic a little bit better. And honestly, with things like Sheoldred the Apocalypse or Nekuzar, making that card draw hurt so that they don't want to draw the cards is also a very viable strategy. But there's also been rumblings about like it was too expensive to be banned because it's a $60 card. I think when I bought mine it was $55. I've seen it for as high for this is for the Prophecy version, by the way. I've seen it for as high as $74. And then you get it into like the confetti foil anime girl art, and it's what, $300? Whatever it is, I'll put it here, whatever it is. So it's an expensive card, but I don't think that's why it was banned. I think it was, or wasn't banned. I think it wasn't banned because it's just really not that big of an issue at most tables. I think it's over maligned. I think there's a lot of very loud, angry people talking about how unfair the card is when it's really not that bad and not that hard to play around. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought about cards like Smothering Tithe and Ghostly Prison, and with Ghostly Prison, Windboard Muse and Propaganda, and other tax effects like even Archangel of Tithes. And it got me thinking, are taxes really that bad? Now, I know this is such a odd thing to talk about, but really, are taxes in Magic that bad? I mean, you can't always pay them. Some of them are higher, and they do change the way that you play, but I have been on record telling you to play more stacks. And when you truly look down at it, stacks is just resource denial. That's all it is. And what is a prison deck or any other type of tax effect? Not just stacks. I mean, what is death and taxes without its taxes, you know? You can pay them, but you are then denying your opponent a resource. With Smothering Tithe, you can pay the 2 to not have that person generate a treasure, but then you have 2 less mana, and 2 mana is a lot, especially early in the game. It's the same thing with Mystic Remora. While Mystic Remora is not quite as maligned because it does have the cumulative upkeep and does eventually go away on its own, 4's a lot of mana to pay, especially if it's in the opening hand. But even if it's not, 4's a lot of mana to pay just so somebody doesn't draw a card of a non-creature spell. And that would really make you consider what you wanted to do in a turn. Did you want to play a spell and then pay for it? Pay for the Mystic Remora? Do you want to play a spell and pay for the Rhystic Study? Do you want to play a spell and pay for the Esper Sentinel? It changes how you think that your turn can go, or you are allowing your opponents to have a resource that you don't have, or you're giving them an extra resource, as it were. So I don't know. I do definitely agree. Things like Ghostly Prison, Archangel of Tithes, Smothering Tithe, Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, Rhystic Buddy of Esper Sentinel, I agree that they are strong and powerful cards and can sometimes be pretty fucking annoying to play against, but I don't think they're as bad as people make them out to be. Now, please hear me out on this. I do think if someone builds their deck around these taxing effects, specifically Propaganda and Ghostly Prison or slash Windborne Muse or any of the other Archangel Ties, any of those other ones that force you to pay mana to attack this player or even block their creatures, I they can get really, really annoying. I have a friend who has a goad deck that has propaganda in it. It becomes so incredibly hard to swing your creatures at him when your creatures are constantly getting goaded, and there's the propaganda, so you have to pay 2 to attack him every time. It really helps you see the benefit of interstapped and attacking so that you don't have to deal with the paying 2 when you declare attacker's step. But at my core, I just don't think they're that bad. They're easy to deal with in the right colors, ideally white and green when you have exile non-land permanent. I mean, shit, I've just been building an Esper Fairy deck, and there's a lot of removal that is either destroy or exile, target non-land permanent. You just need to look for things that say non-land permanent. Now I know black is one of the most powerful colors in the game, and I myself love playing black. Let's just look back at my Esper Fairies list again and to how quickly my life total goes from 40 to 12. But at the same time, you don't have to play black. You can, or you don't have to play just black. You can play black and white, black and green. You can play Orzhov, Dimir, Abzan, Golgari, Mardu, Esper, whatever you want. If you want to play black, you can just throw in more colors. If you don't want to play black, you don't have to. Nobody's making you do this. I mean, black only has two forms of enchantment removal. One with Feed the Swarm, and the other one I don't remember. I can see the art in my head, but I don't remember what the card is called. But it came out in Duskmourn, and it was the first like destroy targeted enchantment in black. But you don't have to play those cards. You can play around them in different ways. You can look for ways that one make sure that your opponents can't draw a card. I mean, there's always Narset, and I'm sure there are other cards that say your opponents can only draw 1 card per turn, but I'm only remembering 3 mana Narset. There's that. Oh god, there's so many other ways to get around this. There's for the prison decks, like with Propaganda, Archangel, and Ghostly Prison, there's tokens that enter tapped and attacking. You can declare those to anybody. They don't trigger those, they just come straight in attacking that player. It mobilizes actually a great boon to players who don't want to deal with that or deal with having to pay. You just send them at send your creatures at another player, and then your tokens come in tapped and attacking the player with the Ghostly Prison, the Propaganda, whatever. I mean, I myself have Istola. She came with Propaganda, and I threw in Ghostly Prison. I don't want people swinging at that deck, swinging at me while I'm playing that deck. But I know that if they do, it's going to have to be through tokens that come in tapped and attacking, or things that enter the battlefield, like non token creatures that enter the battlefield tapped and attacking. I just don't think these cards are as strong as we're giving them credit for. Now, again, I have to reiterate, I don't think that they're not strong. I think they're very powerful cards, especially when used correctly and when used in a way or built when your deck is built around them. Things like Glacial Chasm. That nothing I think the only card that makes me saltier than Glacial Chasm is Joda the Unifier, and that's because I've never seen a Joda deck not be fucking horrendous to play against. But my one and only time playing against a Glacial Chasm deck was against my old co-host. He had built Muldrotha, the Gravetide, and so every turn, he just sacked off Glacial Chasm, replayed Glacial Chasm out of the graveyard. So he's getting the benefit from Glacial Chasm. You can't attack him. There's no damage dealt to him. And it's essentially a lock. I mean, he did end up winning that game, I remember. But it became there was a point where it was so hard to get through. I think I ended up having to play an Author of Shadows to even start damaging him, but at that time it was so late that there was no way I was winning that game. So as long as there are ways around it, and you will find ways around it, especially the more you're exposed to these cards, they're not as powerful as you might think they are. But, I mean, you guys have your own experiences. I could be wrong. I could be completely incorrect about your experience. They could be the strongest things imaginable in your pods. I don't know, but if they are the strongest things imaginable in your pods, I would definitely say play some naturalize effects. Throw a Croson Grip in your deck. Find ways to remove these enchantments and remove these things, whether through exile or what have you. Farewell. And you can get around these cards without having to worry about giving so many resources or spending so many of yours. But I think that's going to do it for me today. Thank you all so much for watching and for listening. If you want to support the show, you can do so over on Patreon or check out our sponsors and affiliates up at the beginning of the episode. I want to say thank you to our patrons. We have Sarah, Kate, Ian, Jenny, Grayson, Jake, and Charlie. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. If you want to join the Patreon at $5 a month, I suggest highly. $5 a month and above gets you a monthly zine sent directly to you. I hand draw them and I mail them straight to you. At $10 a month and above, you get your very own set of Nerds and Nachos styled proxies. These are cards that I genuinely like, but I kind of treat it like a secret layer, and I always want the value to be higher than what you're paying. Now, these are every 3 months, so it's a quarterly thing. So, roughly, if you get in the month before or the month or early enough in the month that I am releasing them, it's only $10. And I'm going to make sure that your value on these cards, if they were real, is higher and they're always playable. Our most recent ones were the original 10 dual lands. The ones before that included Rhystic Study and Demonic Tutor. But thank you all so much for listening and for watching, and I hope you have a great week.